This episode is proudly supported by the new Capital Food Market Canberra, where you can explore the very best producers, artisans, fresh food providores and hospitality venues of the region. Here's Bede Wright from Market Meats.
It looks great. Everything is looking so high end. And I think everybody that I've spoken to in the markets that has a stall, that's what we want. We've always had this vision of how our business should be and the kind of operation we want, the kind of clientele we want. And I think finally the two sides of that are going to mesh. And it's just a really inviting place.
For more information, go to capitalfoodmarket.com.au or visit the markets and feed your curiosity.
He was, quite a few years senior to me and said, "You don't know what you're talking about, son. If you reckon whiskey's rubbish, you need to try a single malt and you need to try one of these." And he gave me a list. I went home and bought one, and Mel and I tried it, and it was almost that light bulb moment. It was the love of whiskey started from then, and I guess reached such a point that I wanted to find out how to make it.
Something a little bit different today on Dirty Linen. We are on the road in South Gippsland, an hour and a bit from Melbourne, in the very pretty town of Locke. I'm sitting here with Craig Johnson at his Loch Brewery and Distillery. I'm looking out the window to the very pretty rolling green hills that are so characteristic of this part of the world. Craig, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thank you for having me.
It's funny to welcome you when I'm sitting in your beautiful distillery and brewery.
Well, I should say welcome to South Gippsland. It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's great to be here. Certainly a gorgeous part of the country. I do love heading out of Melbourne and down this way. Set the scene for us. What's Locke like, and what's your part here?
Yeah, well, look, Locke's a little village, only just over an hour from Melbourne. We moved here about 13 years ago now, into the old bank, Union Bank. It's been around for about 125 years. We moved down here for the reason for making whiskey. It was the original dream. From that, it sort of turned into a brewery and distillery. So we now make real ales, gin, rum, brandy, and single malt whiskey, of course.
And what would you say is characteristic about the Locke style of making these drinks?
Look, I think the thing we were always most interested in was the traditional methods. For the brewing process, we love the idea of hand mashing and gravity feeding the mash tun out to the underback. Things that just aren't really done in modern brew houses. They're not done in modern brew houses for good reason. They're slower, they're more time consuming, they're harder to do. But we just love the idea of that old school technique where you actually get that feeling of how the mash is reacting by the paddle, the way the paddle moves through the actual the vessel, and that really helps us, I think, sort of tweak the each individual brew to what we want.
So what might a typical day entail? What happens here?
Oh, look, we're only a very, very small team. There's only 4 of us in the entire operation, so we will basically flip between brewing and distilling, or we can actually be doing the two simultaneously sometimes, and bottling. So it's usually very busy, and then even on a Friday we'll be actually opening the cellar door as well. So there's quite often we'll be running in and out from production to give the guys a hand sometimes in the cellar door.
And what's a good day at Locke? What's some of your favourite things to do here?
Oh, look, I think any day making whiskey is great. There's just something about it. It's such a wonderful process. The smell of when you're first mashing in with the hot water and the barley coming through from the mill, it's amazing. That sweet barley smell is fantastic. But then in saying that, when you're distilling, that's fantastic because you're smelling the fruits of all that work. And then obviously after a number of years, when you start looking and going to select barrels, and actually that may be my favourite part, selecting barrels, because after years you go up there and it's like revisiting an old friend. You open up a barrel and you smell and go, I think that might be the next one. and it's simply, that's probably the best part, because that's the culmination of all that hard work over the years.
Amazing. I'd love you to tell the story of what brought you here. I mean, what makes someone move the family from Melbourne to start a brewery and a distillery?
Well, I think everyone thought we were mad. Both my wife and I were mad for wanting to do this and bring our then 7-year-old daughter out from inner Melbourne. Look, it actually started with a workplace conversation about single malt whiskey. I was in my early 20s. Thought I knew everything as I did back then, and a gentleman who was working with me, his mother actually grew up on Isla, and he was quite a few years senior to me, and said, "You don't know what you're talking about, son. If you reckon whiskey's rubbish, you need to try a single malt, and you need to try one of these." And he gave me a list. I went home and bought one, and Mel and I tried it, and it was almost that light bulb moment. It was the love of whiskey started from then, and I guess reached such a point that I wanted to find out how to make it. And probably about 15 years ago, I had the opportunity of actually going and learning how to make whiskey. And as soon as I walked into the distillery and saw the still and smelt the spirit and tasted the spirit coming off the still, I was hooked. That was it. I somehow had to do it. And luckily, Mel, my wife, was, I guess, is equally enthusiastic about it. We basically just thought, well, we could keep working these jobs, which we were enjoying, and keep doing that and retire, or we could, give something a go, because we thought, well, what happens, if you retire and you go, what if we tried doing this? And in the end, that sort of, we reached the decision, well, we may as well just give it a go, so we don't have that what if when you're 65. We haven't looked back. We loved every second of it. It's a lot of hard work, but at the same time, it's so rewarding. And one of the most rewarding things is, when people come in for the first time and try, say, a gin or whiskey or even a hand-pumped real ale for the first time, they have that light bulb moment, and you see that same spark. It's like, that's great.
What careers did you leave behind?
Look, nothing to do with beverage manufacturing or alcohol production. I actually worked for a multinational truck manufacturer, and was lucky enough to work across all the divisions there and got a lot of experience. And Mel was in art publishing, so it was we're very different. It was a very different world for us. There was a lot of learning, and still is a lot of learning. But the great thing is, I think it's what we've found through meeting other people in the industry. Is there's a lot of support and a lot of encouragement for anyone who's got passion and desire to do this. We've been able to really talk to other people and winemakers and other brewers in the area, and it's great. It's really been nice.
I mean, what I see when you show me around where you're making everything is like this real balance between science, and you have to be quite rigorous, and there's a lot of compliance, but then there's also this artistic, how does it feel, how does it taste element. How do you balance those things?
Well, look, it's I think coming from that engineering or manufacturing background, I understood the rigors of quality and what you have to do to maintain the records and everything else. The art, though, is the thing that never really came into truck manufacturing, but that's where I've been able to sort of, I guess, express as a brewer and distiller that part. So it's amazing. It actually sort of flows naturally, because I don't really have to think too much about the process side, the control side, the measurement side. It means I can really just let my mind go on the creative side, and that's actually been, I think, again, another thing about making this decision and this change. It really sort of opened up that part for me, being able to be expressive in that way. because you don't really get that in an engineering sense, in a manufacturing sense, where everything has to be exactly the same all the time. Here we can really change what we want to do as we see a different direction, and make those changes sometimes even on the fly, which is really liberating. It gives you that creative freedom that you don't get from just mainstream manufacturing of engineering pieces, I guess. So, yeah.
And you didn't just change careers. You also moved out of the city, had the proverbial tree change.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. How did you land on Locke in the first place, and what's the move been like?
Look, it was one of those things. It took us years to find this place. We looked all over the state. Mel's got probably 3 or 4 generations of family from down here, from farming down in South Gippsland, so we knew the area well. And in the end, this place came on the market, and we'd actually stopped driving through Locke because it had been bypassed, and we'd sort of almost forgotten about it. But then this place came on the market, and we thought, "Oh, that could work." And the building was beautiful, and the village was picturesque. It's great. And the great thing about it was it's only that little hour and 10 minutes from Melbourne, in that wonderful triangle between the Prom, Wilson's Prom, Inverloch and Phillip Island. So we knew people would be calling through. All we had to do is hopefully build something that people would stop at, and luckily they have. And
what changes have you seen in the region in the time that you've been here?
Oh, look, it's been really interesting to see, over the years, a lot of obviously newer wineries come on. There's been some great breweries start up, and of course we've got a great cidery down in Foster, and I think what we're seeing now is a really we're almost having the South Gippsland renaissance of food and drink, because not only in wine and spirits and beer, there's great cheese producers. We've got 2 of the world leading cheese producers just around the corner, which is amazing. So perfect for pairing with gin or wine, really. And we've got great bakers and so many different producers in the area. It's really, I think, now we're at a point where people, instead of just travelling straight through, are really slowing down their travels and exploring the region a lot more, which is great, because it really, it's great for South Gippsland, and it's great for the people visiting. We still have every weekend people coming from Melbourne going, "Oh, I just did not know it was so beautiful down here," and not realising how close it actually is to their back door.
Yeah, it is so pretty. I think it's great that Locke got bypassed, because it's maintained that hidden away feeling. Yeah, look, it's one of those things that the bypass can often be the end of a town, and I think a lot of people worried about Locke, in the early days. But in the end, the way they did the bypass, which is just directly around the town, so you can still drive straight through the village. Psychologically, people like to keep moving forward when they're travelling. But it's meant the town's become quieter. So it actually has a village feel. You don't get the big trucks roaring through town, at 80 k's. It's it really is nice and safe. The kids playing out in the park and everything, and it really does feel like a quintessential little village. Stuck somewhere in the back rolling hills. It's great. And how's your commute? The commute is, I used to do probably an hour and a half one way in the old days before we moved down here. Now the commute's about 30 seconds down the stairs unless I trip and fall. The commute to work's great. Trying to get away is a bit hard, but look, it's great. It's a lot of people say you shouldn't really work where you live, and I can see why, but at the same time, it's when you love it so much, it's hard not to want to go and do it. So there's probably not a day I'm not out there doing something or checking something. A lot of people would also say be wary about working with family. So you're in a very tight family business.
Actually, we've got the whole lot. Well, our daughter is now old enough to be helping in the cellar door too. So and helping with some of our art. So look, it is a family affair. It's actually been great because I think for Mel and I, we have very different strengths when it came to what we could do in the business, and I think that's actually really been complementary to us being able to do what we've been able to in those 10 or 11 years. I think if we didn't have the range of skills or had the same skills, it probably would have been more disagreements and would have been a lot harder. It's quite a lucky thing to be able to do is live and work with your family and all under the one roof.
A lot of people have probably got a bit of a dream, wondering if they've got the bravery or the resources to take a leap. What have you learnt from your journey that might help others? Yeah,
look, I think, passion's the main thing, passion and drive and determination. You don't necessarily need to go out there and start with the biggest stills or the biggest kit or a massive bottling line. Start small, work your way up, learn your crafts, put the hours in, don't overextend. Make sure that you keep your idea, your goals, your original goals as clear in your mind as you can. We started with a much smaller still. The first still we used was a little 5 litre still for all our R&D. Then our first production still for gin was a 30 litre still, which is actually sitting behind you over there on the one of the tables. You don't have to start with massive equipment. You build into it, and I think if you do that and keep really focused on that, you can, and most importantly, keep that passion, that drive going. It's worth every moment of the blood, sweat, and tears.
You've mentioned some of the people that you learnt from over the years. Like how important is community to what you do? Oh,
look, I think it's one of those things that you never stop learning, and you cannot stop learning in anything in life, but especially in something like this. There is so much crossover, even in the wine industry. Now, a lot of the winemakers I know, so open in their knowledge, and will share what they do, and it's sometimes not that they know what we're doing, and it's not that we understand what they're doing, but it's that communication and it's that open dialogue where you can really share these ideas, and as you start to understand where they're coming from and what they're doing, that's where you start to go, oh, hang on, I can do this, or that might work in this way for me. And a lot of us work together in terms of sharing ideas about equipment. And of course, there's differences because wine bottles are different to spirit bottles and different to cans and all that sort of stuff. But we all try and sort of help each other out with not reinventing the wheel, and I think that's actually been one of the greatest things. Like in the early days, just being able to ask those questions and then being able to reciprocate that for other people who are coming in new, because I think that's where you get that strength in quality. If everyone can have a bit of an easier go of finding the right way, we just have a better quality industry across the board, and that's even food. I've learnt from one of the local cheesemakers some really interesting things, and even about waste management, things like that. Silly things like that. It still makes your day easier, and you can make better decisions. So community's very important.
And do you think there's something about South Gippsland? I mean, it's quite compact. It's not that long between towns. Is it, or is it that there's a lot of new people coming into the region?
Well, no, I think it's actually broader than you think. It's funny how it actually takes 20 minutes at least to get anywhere, really. And it's actually everything's a fair drive. I think that there are a lot of newer players on, but there's a lot of people who have been in the area just slowly building up to starting and doing things and growing. It's hard sometimes actually for us to all catch up because the distance is, if you consider more central Gippsland and even East Gippsland, it's 4 hours away. So we rarely see some of those guys. It's always good to catch up. I think that the local the immediate guys who we do get to talk to more often, we can really cover off things quickly with them, and because you can just drop in and say, hey, how do you do this, and it works well.
And I'd love you to talk about perhaps one beer, one gin and one whiskey, that if people want to get a little bit of a survey of what Locke is all about, where would they start?
Right, well, okay. With the beers, they're all real ales, so proper old school English beers. So I would say anything. I'm not going to say one beer. I'm just going to say a type of dispensing cask ale, which is traditional in the UK, which is it's not a keg, it's a cask, no carbonation, and you pump it through the hand pump. So any beer that's on the cask is probably the go-to for us, and it's something that probably sets us apart because not many people do it because of the care that has to go into casking beer and dispensing. So it's probably our signature for the ales, that real ale. The gin, I'd probably go the Weaver, only because it was the second gin that we made and released. And it's called the Weaver because at the time I was doing all the R&D on making these gins. I was crossing backwards and forwards between the buildings, and the orb weaver spiders were out, and I'm reasonably tall. I used to always walk through their webs and be brushing off orb weavers off my head. It was one of those gins that we'd made a whole lot of experimental ones, had a bottle sitting there, and one of the guys working for us made martinis one night, and we're like, wow, what's this? He goes, oh, it's that one over there. I said, which one? He goes, number 4 or 3 or whatever it was. And I went, right, I think that might be the next gin because it tasted so good, and it was a blend of, it's a London Dry blend of Australian native botanicals and the traditional botanicals, and the native Australian botanicals are grown about 20 minutes away from here again on a sustainable bush food farm. So it works so well as a martini gin. It just starts off nice and sort of light and sweet, and then finishes dry and savoury, so it works really, really well. Whiskey, well, look, they're all single malts. I'd say probably at the moment, it's like picking a favourite child.
I'm sorry, I know.
It's really going to hurt doing this. Look, I would say probably the Pedro Jimenez, just because it's such a rich, luscious whiskey. Those dried fruit characteristics coming out, from the sherry. We were lucky enough to get some Pedro Jimenez and Oloroso barrels from Spain that were cut down into an octave cask. They were, so only ever used for Pedro Jimenez, and we got them, still quite wet when we got them, and we're able to, fill our spirit straight into them. And as the spirit was going in, it smelled fantastic. So I knew it was going to be amazing after 5.5 years, whatever it was. And yeah, it's probably my go-to, but I hope the others aren't listening.
They're not listening. Craig, what do you love about what you do?
Oh, look, I think there's too many things. It's such to be able to do this is, for all the, complaining about early mornings and feeling tired and everything else, it's a fairly luxurious thing to be able to say, hey, I make whiskey for a living, or I make gin for a living, or I make beer for a living. Well, I make them all for a living. Look, probably the best bit at the end of all of it is, when you see those customers that have come in and never had a gin or a real ale or something like that before, and they get that spark as well, that initial light bulb moment of, it's actually not bad. Or even guys that have never had, people have never had dark beer before because, I don't like dark beer, and you get them to try dark ale, and they go, ooh, that's actually quite good. I like that. I might have to try more of them. That's great, because you've actually changed someone's thinking about what a product could be. That's probably the most rewarding at the end. But look, it's I think it's just a wonderful thing to be able to do this and to be a part of this industry, really.
Would you love to pour one of your single malts for the man who told you knew nothing at the truck place?
I have actually thanked him many times for it, and I've actually told him without his direct involvement that day, it may not have happened. And it's amazing to be able to trace all the way back to a single conversation. The change. So I've thanked him many times over the years.
I love that, Craig. So fantastic to hear your story. I love that it just, there's this clear turning point in your life, and you've just really run with it. So thank you so much for having us here and sharing with me today.
No, you're welcome. Thanks for coming.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.